Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Exit the Maze podcast. I'm your co host, Scott Jones, along with Dr. Donna Marks. We're very glad to have you with us. And before we get going with the show, let me just remind you that if you like the show, please subscribe to this channel, share this show with your friends. And if you have any questions or want to participate at all, reach out to myself or Dr. Marks and let us know what you'd like to talk about, or even if you'd like to be a guest. Listen, we're wide open, folks, and we're just kind of doing this because we want to put the information out there about addiction recovery, a little mental health stuff in there, a little bit of everything, for your so that you could have the information that if you ever have to, God forbid, deal with this situation, you'll know what to do. Donna, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. And how are you?
I'm doing really well. I've been very busy, which busy is a good thing.
Yeah.
Had a nice 3-day weekend, though. I did enjoy that.
Had some downtime and relaxed?
I wouldn't say I relaxed or it was downtime, but I got to do work at home that I wanted to get done.
Oh, so you got caught up on some projects.
I got caught up in project, moved some furniture around a little bit. Due to my insomnia, I decided it's time for me to change my bedroom around a bit. And I changed it around a little bit, and it's actually helping a little bit. It actually feels... because it feels different. It's something fresh. And sometimes I guess we just need that, right?
Right. Absolutely. And there is some kind of scientific basis to where your bed and which direction it's facing and all that. I remember when I was studying Kabbalah, they talked about it. I don't remember, but there are the four corners of the
yes.
pen. And so there is some type of synergistic and energistic levels, depending on which way that your head and your feet are facing on your bed.
Now, my head is facing east. My feet are facing west. So I don't know if that's good or not. But I also have one of those bedrooms where I don't get to play feng shui, or else I won't be able to get into the master bath. I mean, there's just so many places you can put things.
Right. Well, that would mean that's good for feng shui, that you don't. The feng shui is you have like one item in a room.
Oh yeah, I know.
Two items for balance.
That's a little too minimalistic for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
And you said you're getting your website up for your artwork. That's exciting.
Yes. SoberLifeArt.com will be launched sometime in the next 5 to 10 days. And people will be able to buy artwork on there from myself, my art, and other people's art. People who use art as part of recovery or dealing with mental health or trauma, or anybody who uses it to just uplift themselves is really what it's all about. And 20% of that will go to helping first responders. 20% of all the sales from the site will help first responders deal with trauma and addiction through One Brother, One Sister. So
that's wonderful. And that's right in line with the some of the courses offered on ATC. Where people who are licensed or certified in addictions or mental health can get their CEUs for those courses. So that's all wonderful going together. And what do you attribute all this burst of energy? I know you've had COVID at least twice since I've known you in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Just exploding with energy.
I think part of it is there's two pieces to it. One is my change in diet. And I don't mean going on a diet. I mean changing my diet, my eating habits, and
which gives me love yourself.
I what?
Eating as though you love yourself instead of loving the certain things that were not very loving, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I'm finding excitement in cooking again and in exploring different flavors and if I want something sweet, I can make a fruit smoothie that is healthy. I could do those kind of things. I don't have to run and eat cookies or things like that. Kale chips are better than potato chips. I mean, there's certain things I'm learning that I really enjoy.
Yes.
And it gives me more energy. And plus, I took your advice on some of the things. You were saying something about 2 weeks ago about insomnia and about your body will let you sleep when it's supposed to sleep. And if it's going to wake you up, don't stress. Don't worry about it. Just kind of go with it. And I started doing that, and I realized, okay, I'm not sleeping as much as I really like to sleep, but I feel okay, and I'm not stressed because I'm not worried about it. I just kind of go with it. And when my body wakes me up, it's like I got my New York Times crossword right next to the bed there. I turn on the light. I do a couple of puzzle questions, turn the light off, and I try to go back to sleep. And I found that not only am I doing better in that area, but I'm getting more puzzles done too.
Yeah, and you're happier. You're happier because
I'm
you're not
happier.
all wigged out about it. I don't know if I said it last time, but when I first started getting all messed up about waking up, you get older and your sleep pattern, da, 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 all that negativity, it has
Yeah.
to do with age. It has to do with this. I think it has to do with when we're healthy, we get so much energy and we get on this creative beam. And so what I start telling myself when all that was happening and I was reacting to it in a negative way, I saw this sign one time. It said, "Drink more coffee, you can sleep when you're dead." I don't drink more coffee, but I don't worry about getting so much sleep. I don't have to have my sleep. I
Yeah.
go with the natural biorhythms, and I always have plenty of energy.
And I've done some common sense things, like I don't drink coffee at night anymore. I used to drink coffee every night. Now, maybe if I'm doing a podcast, I'll have a half a cup of coffee or a cup of coffee, but I really don't drink coffee at night like I used to. I'm trying to do some certain things to take care of myself, but and that's what we're here about. And
Well, your
like,
brain's readjusting. You're eating healthy and you're
yes,
taking better care of yourself and you're learning how to love yourself. So your brain is readjusting and
absolutely.
it will find its own way as it's supposed to. Looks like we
Shut.
have somebody here saying
Yeah, we
hello.
got shout out to Scott Ricard, who's joining us. He's saying good
Hi,
afternoon, friends. Good
Scott.
afternoon, Scott. Thanks for joining us. Anyone else out there who's joining in, if you text in, if you're watching us on Facebook or even on the YouTube channels, you can make a comment and we'll be able to see it. So I'm not sure if people are aware of that, but you can put a question in there or a statement or just send us a howdy doody, and we'll be happy with that too. Donna, I ran into an interesting situation the other day. I want to jump right into it because I think this could take us the better part of the show to work this out. Where I had a female client, somebody who's fairly new in recovery, but had been through the process many times. And she said it is much harder for a female to deal with their addiction and stay sober than it is for men. And it got to me to think, and at first I thought, well, that's just an excuse. And okay, part of it is. I mean, if you want to be sober, you're going to be sober. It's the truth. But are there some extra difficulties? So I actually went in and I did a little bit of research, and I came up with there are people who do papers and studies on male and female addiction and different
Right.
things. And I came out with some interesting figures that I thought I'd run past you. And some of them might be cringeworthy, and some of them might actually hold some water. So let's take a look here. The first one, it says, is women are more likely to keep their alcoholism or addiction a secret than men. Women are more secretive about their addictions than men. Does that hold water? Do you think that's a fair statement?
Well, based on the thousands of people I've worked with, I would agree with that statement that more women tend to hide their stash. I don't know about drugs, but definitely alcohol.
Really? Is this because of a shame issue, or is it because of like a gender role where we're not supposed to be like that? Or
Yeah, I think it's
does
more
it?
of a cultural thing where women aren't
Okay.
supposed, men get a pass on, screwing around and drinking a lot. After all, you can't help yourself.
And your point is?
I hope your listeners know that we say a lot of things in tongue in cheek.
Yes, I hope so.
But yeah, women are not supposed to be, alcoholics and or drink heavily, and often that's a cultural, not always, but sometimes it's a cultural issue, which would make them sneak. And perhaps they're called out more frequently because they are often moms, and moms who are caring for children, especially, don't need to be drinking excessively. So if they're nipping during their day, they're not going to do that in front of their kids, in front of their friends. They're going to
Right.
do it on the down low. And of course, people will notice anyhow, but that's a whole nother issue.
Well, it's not hard to track back to the beginnings of a group, Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the predominant self-help group in the world, I believe. for addictions, certainly alcoholism. It goes back to their origins in the 40s, when the big book, and 40s and 50s when the big book was written and finalized, and their main text is all about men's addictions, men's alcoholism. There's even a chapter in there that is called "To the Wives,"
Right.
assuming that everybody who has an alcohol problem is a male, and the women
Right.
are the ones who are just walking around cleaning up after us.
Absolutely. That's because there weren't any women when they wrote the book. I think one came in right after that.
Right. And but so we've come a long way since then, certainly.
Yes.
I have not. I mean, we've got women's groups and women's treatment centers and women's support systems, all sorts of things in place, certainly. But I think there still is that little bit of a stigma that stays with women, that you're not supposed to be as nasty and dirty as the guys get. You're not supposed to be that. And so I can see that as a roadblock. So I'm gonna say that's a true statement there.
I think that there is some truth to it. Yes.
Okay. Professionals in a job market, men are tested and asked about their drug and alcohol use more often than women are, which lends itself towards women keeping it a secret. So it's almost like men are held more accountable. And like if you go into a job place where they're going to assume the guys are drinking too much or using or something, they don't make those same assumptions about the women in the workplace, which actually can be a problem because then women might actually get away with it longer. So that's one of the statements they made, is that in the workplace, men are assumed to be more likely to be alcoholics and addicts than women are.
Well, I think there are more people, males, that are diagnosed right now. That doesn't mean it's the case, but right now more men. There's a higher. If you go to any 12-step meeting or treatment center, the ratio is definitely higher. But I don't know that that workplace. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Like when you go for an interview, if they ask you, they can't just ask men and not women. That would be discrimination, and that would not work with the not the HIPAA laws, the employment laws, and all. You can't just ask one set of questions and not the other.
I think it's about the assumption is made,
Okay.
more so about men and women when they go into workplaces where men are like, oh man, I got to be careful and everything. And I think women, there's not that assumption that they're going to be that kind of person.
Well, okay. I don't know that would be true in South Florida.
Okay. Like I said, this is just statements that they came up with, and I don't agree with it either.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I just think it depends on where you are and what kind of work environment you're in. If you're in the restaurant and hospitality business, it's probably pretty equal across the board. But if you're in banking and medicine and things, it probably is more likely to be men than women. Although in hospitals, nurses are the highest.
I was just going to say, yeah,
but because there's more female nurses. So I just think it depends on a lot of different factors. Now you also need to talk about the addiction. If you're talking about porn, which is extremely probable at work nowadays, like every 30,000 hits, like every minute on porn sites during the day and night, not just
from people's workspace.
Right. So
wow.
That's more likely men than women, not because women don't do it, because women do it, but men can, get aroused and usually, get the relief more quickly. So they're more likely to, slip into their office, close the door and watch porn. So it just depends on what the addiction is, I think, and the workplace situation.
So I think it's too broad of a statement to say either way. It's not. I don't think it's an accurate statement because, like you said, you go into high schools and stuff, and you got predominantly a female staff. I mean, so it's going to be a different animal there or different.
Yes.
So, all right. Now here's one of the issues that have been brought up as why women might have more issues finding recovery or achieving sobriety. Is because they are reluctant to go in because they actually are more in tune with household concerns and childcare concerns than men. So it's kind of a roadblock for them. They've got to worry about feeding the kids and doing that stuff. Whereas men can kind of slack off in those areas. And I'm going to agree with that statement. I'm going to say men can be less aware of their familial responsibilities than women are. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree that if a woman has children that she's caring for, it's very difficult to go to treatment, but it's certainly not difficult to go to meetings. And we all know that the ratio of recovery in meetings is about the same, if not better, than treatment.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I think they just get more concerned about that stuff. Um, and certainly, I'm not saying all men are oblivious in those areas, but men tend to separate themselves emotionally more from their families, especially their wives and children and things like that, than women do.
Is that what you're noticing in treatment?
That's what I'm noticing in treatment is that we see a lot more women who are the sole caretakers of the children, whether they have means or not. And rarely do you see where the man's a sole caretaker. And I don't know if that's, I don't want to get into a big physiological or psychological debate about anything, but I don't know if that's just the way we're wired or if that's a societal thing. But men tend to be less emotional in those areas. Doesn't mean we don't love them, but we don't live in that emotion the way women do. And so we could separate ourselves a bit more from that. But that's also a problem because we could separate ourselves more and use more and do more destruction as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, we could free ourselves up to go to treatment easier, but we also free ourselves up to do more damage as well. Am I going too far with that?
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is the one statement that I think we already covered, but it's important. It says women face more of a stigma as a female addict than men face as male addicts. There is a bigger stigma on that, and that goes. I mean, that runs deep. That's like the racism conversations we're having in the country and everything else. Equal rights. It still runs deep that women are supposed to act a certain way and men are not held to that standard. So
well, I think we've come a long way, and because so many more women are addicted to all kinds of things, that it is changing. But traditionally, yes, there was much more of a stigma because I think because the woman is the maternal figure and the feminine energy, and they're not supposed to be, the ruckus and the acting out and the rebellious and the, walking the wild side types of, that's not the role. But it is certainly changing because there is a much more of an equilibrium now in that respect.
It's changing. It's changing slowly. But I mean, I definitely still see the divide there, even into the point where, sometimes women's addictions and stuff are downplayed so that they don't seem as bad. And then that could be because of the stigma. Whereas men, it's almost like let's overamp them and let's make the addiction larger than life. It's like the man is out there doing a battle with addiction. Women aren't supposed to be having those kind of fights and stuff. They're supposed to be doing other things. So, I mean, I don't know. Again, when you get hit with statements like that as a man, sometimes I have difficulty. It's like, should I be even addressing this? And if a female comes up to me, a female client comes up to me and says, women have problems that you don't understand, I can't sit there and say, yes, I do understand.
No, but you can say, well, tell me what you think those are. And that's exactly what you've done and getting these questions from women. And somebody's got to do it. And that's what our show's about. Everything everyone to ask and didn't.
That's right.
So we're not going to back off of any of the controversies. We're going to go head on right into them because we care and we're going to do the best we can to answer them. And it's not a black and white thing. What men do and what women do and all the preferences in between. It's not black and white. So we'll just, we can only share what we know based on our own experiences. And you've worked with thousands of people and I've worked with thousands of people, but we are in South Florida and the norms are probably different here than they are in Kansas or something like that. So.
Right, exactly.
Do the best we can, and we want our audience to make their contributions too in terms of their thoughts.
there's a statement here that women tend to be more negative towards treatment than men. I don't know that that's the case. I don't know. Although I will say that in my experience, maybe this is being based on the fact that I've seen women enter treatment and just, for lack of a better term, word vomit all over the place. Just say what they're thinking and tell people it sucks, or they're much more open with what they're thinking, whereas men become more stoic, quiet, and reserved, and kind of hide in a corner and
And
wait
more
for this.
tribal, and more tribal. They'll click with the male group much easier than the women. The women maybe are not going to clan up like they'll get one or two other women often, and then there'll be more competition. Men are much more around the campfire, less competitive with one another, and more. It's a totally different personality dynamic in that respect, for sure.
So while they're
Also,
probably
in terms of personality disorders, more women get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which comes across as very negative at times, very caustic, and so that could be part of what is the dynamic that this is the references to, that women have a harder time with treatment.
now with those kind of things, Donna, are we talking about, is this a physiological difference, or is it because of the cultural pressures and the systems that we have in place, why women might have more of these mental health things going on?
Oh, I don't know that women have more mental health diagnosis than men. I'm talking about borderline personality disorder, which it can be very black and white thinking.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Is more common in women. And when they can be the personality type can be very compliant, but then when something switches, it's very negative. So that was what I was referring to in regards to one aspect of what might make women more negative, is because they do have a higher diagnostic rate. Men do have it too, but it's more common in women to have a BPD, or borderline personality disorder.
Gotcha.
In fact, when treating this disorder, treatment centers and therapists find it very difficult, because when it goes negative, it goes real negative, and it's easy to get turned off. So one of the things that is done is that people have to sign a contract that no matter how much they decide they don't like the therapy anymore, that they have to stay. And so, we're committed to getting through this no matter what. And then, one of the things about borderline personality is that what we call that observing ego, the ability to watch yourself and see how your personality might be affecting your environment, is dimmed in the BPD disorder. So helping people to look at themselves and to be observers and to put themselves in the other place, and to avoid that shutdown reaction type of experience. And things are either all bad or all good. I love you, this is the best place I've ever been, it's so wonderful, to I hate you, I'm out of here as quick as I can get type of dynamic.
And by the way, a lot of what we're talking about is based in part in your book, Exit the Maze, which the new edition is coming out in just another 2 months, I think, or 2.5 months.
It'll be out in December, and I'm so excited that we're doing well on the pre-sales online, and
excellent,
great. I'm very, very excited.
Follow along with that, drdonnamarks.com. drdonnamarks.com is where you can find out all about that stuff. And of course, just keep following us on the podcast, and we'll tell you what's going on with the book. And you have your training at atceducation.com, where you can get the training based on Exit the Maze, the book, and learn all about how to love yourself back to health and those kind of things. But, with all of that being said, and talking about the gender issue, is it important that treatment centers deal with genders in different ways? Now, I know, the majority of groups can be together and stuff, but I know there's some treatment centers that are not pulling them apart and doing gender groups and things that are specific to gender. That's a mistake, isn't it?
I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. If they're good,
if you're
going to have co-ed treatment, people are going to fall in love or lust or whatever you want to call it. And so you kind of learn how to try to divert that. If people find they're attracted to each other, are they willing to contract to put it on hold? Because if it's real, it'll still be there, and when they finish treatment, because it can certainly be a distraction, and you get that high, and you get that excitement, and where's the pain then that motivates you to do that deeper healing? So that's the main problem with co-ed, is that it can be too distracting. But don't forget that there's a lot of people in treatment that have same-sex identifications. Just because you put men with men and women with women doesn't mean that you're not going to have any budding romances.
That's right.
So, in a way, I think that it should be part of the treatment, like how sexuality can be an addiction and diversion. I think that's the key, how it can divert you from what brought you into treatment. And most people that are going into treatment have had a lot of pain. So we want that pain to stay there so we can get rid of it. And a relationship, like any other addiction, and I'm not saying it just because you meet someone in treatment, you're addicted, but you're going to get that endorphin fix. And that can be masking the pain. And so what happens is people, get out of treatment, that the relationship doesn't work. And then they're right in the same place, if not worse than before they ever went in. They almost wasted their time being there. So,
yeah. That's people jump into, and let's go back to my original point was, whether it's a gender specific treatment center or a co-ed treatment center, either way, they really should be addressing gender specific issues within those treatment centers and having, not all the groups have to be separate, but there need to be some very specific things. There are specific things women need to talk about with women, and men should be talking about with men.
Absolutely. And they're not the same.
They're not the same things. No, of course not. Because of who we are, because of physiological differences and cultural differences, of course, because whether it's bullshit or not, we still carry that stuff around, and it's got to be talked about and dealt with. Even if it's almost like a Neanderthal type idea, it still is something that's a part of us, and it needs to be discussed. So I think they missed the boat on that. But as you were saying, they jump into these relationships because they're trying to, get the endorphins, build the dopamine, get everything flowing because they feel bad. But if I'm in love, I'll feel better.
Plus, you're in there and you got nothing else to do. You find yourself, you're physically attracted to someone, which is the most normal thing in the world. And then one thing leads to the next. But the problem is all the pain underneath all that still doesn't get addressed.
Well, they're in there and they're checking out the girl across the room. The guy's checking about the girl across the room while he's sitting there eating a couple of dozen cookies and drinking some Kool-Aid filled with sugar. And then he's going to go. I mean, you and I talk a lot about like what they used to call, and I don't even know if they use the term anymore, lifestyle addictions. Lifestyle addictions being food and gambling and sex and those kind of things. But I rarely hear them talked about in addiction in treatment for substance abuse or alcoholism. I rarely hear them talk about or prepare people for the fact that you may become attracted to these other things the minute you walk out the door because you're going
while you're here. While
or
you're
even
here,
while you're here, yes.
We have plenty of it right here. We have plenty of sugar, plenty of caffeine, all these things are abundant. So plenty of drugs too. Let's medicate you up so you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So, I have a whole section in my book on why treatment fails. And that's one of the primary reasons is because they're afraid if I tell you, no smoking, no drinking, no sugar, no porn, no that people won't come. That's why they're afraid that people want to attend treatment. And that is about, if you can't get customers, you can't stay in business. But what if you did do that and people not only attended, but they were really raw and all the stuff is coming out because they're not medicating with more subtle things,
right?
Romance and sugar and, all this other stuff. So what would happen? People would leave there, they'd be in really terrific shape, and they would really understand that there's only one addiction and that thing's going to keep moving around. So, and if you're not using anything the month that you're in treatment, all the wound is going to come up for healing, and then you can learn while you're in treatment how to fill that invisible hole with all the good things that we talk also about in the book, and you and I teach, and what you're teaching right now through the example of eating from junk food to healthy, and taking the time, and all that's giving you, that how much better you feel, not only physically but emotionally.
Yes.
And so people would be leaving treatment going, whoa. I really understand what this addiction is, and I need to learn how to continue to love myself and stay with this and treat every one of these addictions just like alcohol or drugs, one day at a time. And what do I need to do today to feel good so that I don't even think about it? It's just another bad relationship. Like we talked about last time, it's that cute little commercial, the guy broke up with his credit card debt. One of my blogs is how to break up with your addiction, and there's only one. So once you stop that and you replace those behaviors with things that really are love instead of substitutes for love, it's fantastic, because you feel good and you don't even think about it anymore, and you don't even want to anymore, whatever the drug of choice is.
So I love this, as you're saying, it's one addiction. It's almost like this is the one vehicle of destruction. It's your addiction. It just will switch fuels.
Right.
It will switch fuels. So if you're going to cut off it's the scotch and the bourbon and the beer, it'll fuel itself through cocaine and heroin and everything else. And if you cut that off, it'll fuel itself through something as what might seem innocuous like shopping, but it could be totally destructive as you go out. Next thing you know, you got a closet full of clothes that you don't even wear because you were shopping and you don't pay your bills. So it's the same vehicle, but using different fuel.
Right. Any behavior that leads to negative consequences is an addiction, or you wouldn't do it anymore. If you've spent too much money and you got, oh my God, I got all this debt, and you get it paid off, you're like, oh, that was so much work. Next time I can have what I want. I'm not going to deprive myself, but I'm going to save for it. I'm going to save for it, and then I'll pay for it, and I won't put myself in debt over it. And then you're also delaying that, need to just have what you want when you want it, get my fix right now kind of thing.
Instant gratification, that plays a role in addiction itself, no matter what addiction it is. A lot of it has to do with, I need to change something this moment.
Feel better,
to feel something different or experience something in this moment. That instant gratification, that's a big one, right? I mean, it's almost, we're born with instant gratification needs, and if we don't change that, it turns into addiction. It sounds like, as a child, I cry because I want to eat food now.
And but that's not an addiction. That's a response. That type of cry there's hunger. There's genuine hunger, or there's a need to be held. There's a pain and an ache. So babies are not crying and wanting immediate gratification for the same reason that addicts do.
Because babies actually are truly hungry.
Real need.
We want the instant gratification of that pizza in our mouth, but the truth is, it's not because we're hungry.
Right. It's because the brain is wanting to feel better, so that.
Right. So it's emotionally charged. Absolutely.
It's my comfort food.
Yes. God, there's so many different things we can talk about in these categories, and I think we can explore more of that next week, because we've already burned through our time here, and that's
wow.
Well, and I don't know if we solved any problems. I will tell people this, though. In looking for treatment centers, there's always that confusion about what should I look for if your son or daughter or yourself or maybe your spouse needs treatment. I would definitely recommend make sure that they have some sort of gender programming, so that people can talk about certain things that you can't do in a co-ed facility. I'm not saying co-ed's bad, because there's some co-eds that do it very well. There's other ones that don't do it so well. we don't do this often, but your daughter has a website that kind of helps people with this kind of stuff, doesn't she? Why don't you tell
Yes,
people what that is, Donna?
it's called warehab.com. And the treatment centers right now in Florida, there's some others on there too, but mainly Florida, have been evaluated by former patients. So, I always say if you want to know what's going on in a home, ask the kids. They'll tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
Same thing with treatment. It's just another family. So ask the former patients, and they'll tell you what's right and wrong about a place. But I think that one of the more important things is how long has the place been in business? Because if they've been in business for several decades, I know the Beachcomber has, and I went to Hazelton in Minnesota. They're still in business, and I think they're like 50, 60 years old. So I mean, these places are rock solid in terms of the techniques they use. They're not flipping around for the tool du jour. They may add components that are sound and solid that will help, but they stick to those basics of recovery that work. And so it's really important. But I feel to really, if I were going again, I would find some place that's been around for a long time and had good reviews.
Yeah, so that's all good points. Warehab.com. That's WHERERAB, warehab.com. And you're right. You want that opinion from people who have actually been to treatment. If you want a food review, you don't call the guy who just read the menu. You want somebody who ate there. And so you want to talk to somebody. It's the same thing with treatment. Make sure you check that
treatment's
out.
like restaurants. There's fly-by-night all over the place. That people see the possible money. Corporations who know nothing about addiction buy these places, and then they don't really understand how intimately run they need to be. You have to have core, solid staff and ownership and hands-on. And it's not, then you can't run it like a hotel. It doesn't work that way. You're dealing with people who are in a lot of stress and pain, and there's just so many things going on, and it's just important to really find the right place.
Absolutely. And like you said, we got Hazelton, been around for a very long time. Beachcomber, our friends at Beachcomber, are just going to be 46 years this year that they've been operating in the same family, not sold between places. The father passed it to the son, who's passing it to the son. And they care about it. They live right next door. They're like on site.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Thing. Those are the kind of places.
Involved.
Those are the things
it's
you want
not just ka-ching. They're involved, and I think that in the field of addiction, I know when I'm working with people, I am involved. I don't be dependent on me kind of thing. No, we will. It will be an interdependency, because as a therapist, we are like parents who are guiding people to learn how to care about themselves and to let go of addiction and replace those with healthier behavior. So there needs to be that sense that from the top down, that there actually is a sense of being cared for and cared about.
Absolutely. Listen, if you guys want to know more about myself or Dr. Donna Marks, you can check out our websites. For me, it's atceducation.com. You can learn about our trainings, including the Exit the Maze training that Donna puts on for you, and our intervention training that's all available online, and we have live courses as well. Find out about what we've been doing and get involved. We also have our nonprofit, so please check us out. And Dr. Marks, if people want to check out, you've got a couple of books under your belt with the new revision coming out for Exit the Maze, so get your advanced order in for that, and plus another book you're working on. I can't wait to have it come
coming out in April. It's done. The Healing Moment, and then I also have Learn, Grow, Forgive: A Path to Spiritual Success, and that one's available on Amazon. The other two are available for pre-order, and Exit's coming out in December, and The Healing Moment is coming out in April of next year.
That is awesome. Look at you. You were like an author. You're like James. You're pumping them out like James Patterson, for crying out loud.
I'm working on my next book right now.
Are you really?
Yes.
I've got to wait for a bunch of people to die before I can write anything down, because I would hurt too many feelings. I'm telling you.
No, you wouldn't.
But anyway, yeah. You know what? Someday I might do that. But right now I've got my art, I've got my music.
Well,
I've
you
got
are,
my.
those are your books, your music and your art. Those are your books.
That's
That's how
true.
you write your story.
That's true. Just like when I was locked up, they give me all the crayons I want, so I
When you
get
were
to color.
locked up?
When I was kind of locked up for a little while there. But I'm much better now. I'm much better. I don't eat the crayons anymore. I just color with them. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure you join us here every Wednesday at 1:00 for our Exit the Maze podcast. And again, please reach out to us, atceducation.com, drdonnamarks.com. And of course, you can leave messages on our Facebook pages as well. But for now, for Dr. Donna Marks, I'm Scott Jones saying thank you. Everyone, make sure that you do something kind for someone else and do 2 things kind for yourself today. And when you follow that formula, you can never go wrong. Final thoughts, Donna?
And now I just please invite your friends and help us to build this message. We want to save lives and we need your help.
Absolutely. Everyone, take care now.